Oh, Mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Bajra Samaja, Bajra Samaja, Bajra Samaja. Protectors of all sentient beings without exception. Deities who vanquish the ruthless hordes of Maras, knowers of everything as it is. Bhagavans and your retinues, please come here. Argyam padyam pushpe dupe aloke gende nevede shabda pratija soha. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain, four continents, sun and moon, I hold in mind as a Buddha land, and offer it. May all wandering beings experience such a pure realm. Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. So take a few moments to let your body and mind settling into their own places. Let body settle into the 7 points of Vairochana if possible, or as many of those points as you can, beginning with sitting with legs crossed. If not crossed, then sit in a stable way, in a way that will require, in a way that will minimize fidgeting around, moving around. Let body settle into ease, with back upright, shoulders open, both hands leading to holding the posture, the mudra of meditation, with your chin tucked in, your gaze downwards, and your teeth and lips touching each other naturally, with your tongue at the top of your palate. When the body can just settle in this way, it provides the mind a happy place, a supportive place for the mind to also settle just like this. Settle just in this way. For the mind to settle, it really helps to bring the motivation into focus. Starting with the motivation of saying, right now is the time to learn self-care. To learn self-care so that we will be in a better position to care for others. And so at this point where self-care is in the foreground and caring for others in the background, we make a resolve to set aside distractions, to set aside that is all that which is other than what we are trying to accomplish here, temporarily putting them all aside so that the mind can settle together with the body settling. The mind settles. Then let breath be the bridge between body and mind, helping both body and mind to settle. Breathe in, mindful that you're breathing in. Breathe out, mindful that you're breathing out. Naturally and with ease, breathe in, breathe out. Inhale, exhale. So from Kyoba Rinpoche's Fivefold Mahamudra song, the first stanza, which is on page 14 of our Mahamudra manual, is quoted there that he said, if the steed, if the stallion of loving kindness and compassion does not run for the benefit of others, it will not be rewarded by gods and humans. Attend earnestly, therefore, to this foundational attitude. So generate or give rise to metta, maitri, loving kindness by first savoring, experiencing, being an object, being the recipient of loving kindness first. First, recognizing what it is, then being on the receiving end of it. Then, almost like having found a flame, a candle flame, and using that candle flame to light your own candle. And now your candle becomes the source for other candles to be lit. Wishing all beings happiness and the causes of happiness. Here we can focus on kindness that exists in the world, whether for ourselves, for others, personal, impersonal, any and all forms of kindness. Let that radiate. Bring a smile to your face as you radiate Maitri in all directions. Breathe in kindness. Breathe out with even more kindness than you breathe in. For cultivating compassion, we turn to the plight of others. We turn to the suffering of others, seeing the suffering, recognizing the suffering, and also understanding, never forgetting, that suffering has its causes, which is beings have engaged in creating the causes of suffering, and therefore they are experiencing the ripening of those causes. Careful not to let this contemplation go in the direction of who is right and who is wrong. That belongs to a different context that has its place, but not here. Here we want to see the universality of dukkha and how we are all in the same boat in that even though we don't want dukkha, we don't want suffering, we seem to not be able to help ourselves from creating dukkha nonetheless. And with this, we give rise to understanding. We give rise to empathy. We give rise to empathy and understanding. We soften our judgment towards ourselves, towards others. And out of this softening of judgment, we then focus on. This desire that no one taught us, but naturally there, the desire to be free from suffering, whether it's occurring to ourselves or it's occurring for others, naturally we don't want to see suffering anywhere. So we wish all beings freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering. How pitiable all these mothers of mine. How pitiable all these mothers of mine. You can even consider yourself as one of these mothers of yours, to externalize one version of yourself and see yourself too as an object of this karuna. And soften and soften and soften. Let go of the harshness of judgment. This loving kindness and compassion will give rise to aspiration and application, vows of bodhicitta, committing to attaining the result of Buddhahood, committing to the causes of Buddhahood. Therefore, committing to both the causes and the results of Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Recognizing how to truly help all beings, we have to take on the task, the difficult task of attaining Buddhahood. No matter how hard, no matter how challenging. Let this bodhicitta that has arisen, wish for it to become stronger and stronger and stronger. One of the ways to let it become stronger is that now let this bodhicitta arise in the form of the idam. In one way, you can think of this arising of the form of the idam as ultimate bodhicitta. Whereas what we've been cultivating is the relative aspect of bodhicitta. Now, this relative aspect of bodhicitta arises, appears in the form of co-emergent Chakasambhara, Heruka and Varahi in union. And so Kyupa Rinpoche's second stanza says, if with one's body the king of deities exalted forms, the stronghold of the unchanging ground is not seized, the retinue of Dakinis will not assemble. Attend earnestly, therefore, to this body as idam. So let yourself be bodhicitta, and let your appearance of this self be in the form of co-emergent Chakasambhara. There are also three important elements in the practice of idam, just as there were three components in bodhicitta. The three components in bodhicitta being cultivating maitri and cultivating karuna, loving kindness and compassion. Letting loving kindness and compassion become stronger and stronger, and letting that be the pushing force, the motivating force to give rise to aspiration and application, bodhicitta vows, bodhicitta commitment. Here in Yidam, the three key aspects is cultivating clarity, that the form, that the appearance of co-emergent Chakasambhara become clearer and clearer and clearer. As that happens, then the mind will wander less. The mind will not be so distracted. In fact, that mind takes delight in staying in this form and this appearance, because this form and appearance is also said to be the wheel of satisfaction, the wheel of bliss, which is another name of Chakasambhara, the wheel of satisfaction, the wheel of bliss. So we cultivate clarity. We can cultivate clarity and stableness of this because the mind is appearing as the wheel of satisfaction. Connotation of wheel being it's momentary, but it's continuous from moment to moment to moment. Every moment is a moment of satisfaction, of bliss. And try to savor that, try to taste that. Initially, very subtle, if at all there. But know that this form of co-emergent jakasamvara has as its characteristic that of satisfaction, the fulfillment of longing and desire. Is this satisfaction? Is this contentment? Then second element is recollecting purity, remembering the symbolism of this form, of this appearance. And together, these two elements contribute to the most important of the three elements, which is stabilizing divine pride. So just as with the bodhicitta section, where the first two elements provide support for the third element, here too, cultivating clarity, remembering purity, becomes supports for the chief aspect of holding and stabilizing divine pride. And the third part, which is cultivating devotion, Gilbert Rinpoche said, if on the Guru, the snow mountain of the four kayas, the sun of devotion fails to shine, the river of blessings will not flow. Attend earnestly, therefore, to this mind of devotion. beginning first by cultivating the Nirmanakaya aspect of Guru. We now see in the space in front of us, above us, in front, but above us, appears the Guru as Buddha Shakyamuni. Cultivate the presence of Buddha Shakyamuni. Cultivate the experience of being in the presence of Buddha Shakyamuni. Imagine attending his teachings as he taught his disciples 2,500 years ago on the plains, northern plains of India. You can think or imagine seeing him at the foot of the tree in Bodh Gaya, resplendent, having just achieved Buddhahood, following his footsteps as he goes to Deer Park, neighboring city, 7 weeks after awakening, going to Deer Park to teach the 5 ascetics, his first 5 disciples, turning the wheel of Dharma of the 4 Noble Truths. The most basic Dharma wheel, which is the foundation of all Dharmas. It's the Dharma of the 4 Noble Truths. There's nothing more than the 4 Dharmas but the Noble Truths. And less than that, liberation is not possible. And more than that, it is unnecessary. Understand that all the other teachings that the Buddha taught, all elaborating on the Dharma of the 4 Truths. Recall all the different teachings and activities of Buddha Shakyamuni for the benefit of beings. Imagine attending these teachings at various places as the Buddha wandered and taught many disciples for the next 45 years of his life. Always delighting in the meditative state and always teaching at the same time. His mind, his heart was quiet. His teachings flowed. The flowing of the teachings did not disturb the quiet mind. The quiet mind did not result in not teaching, not benefiting others. So these are the 2 qualities of our mind, the empty aspect and the appearing aspect. These are the 2 aspects of the co-emergent Jagasamvara, Varahi and Heruka, indivisible. These are the 2 aspects of application and aspiration bodhicitta, inseparable. And these are also the 2 aspects of relative and ultimate bodhicitta. And these are also the 2 aspects of the outer guru and the inner guru inseparable. The two truths, the two bodhicittas, the two deities, Lord and Lady. The two basic properties of the nature of mind, emptiness and appearance. Okay, so yesterday I talked about, we mostly focus on the four immeasurables. That is a very, important topic. If you have not listened yet, if you were not able to attend yesterday, please take note in particular yesterday's class, where it's just the beginning of some ideas and instructions, especially Kyoba Rinpoche's Chenga Drapa Jungne's recording of this very pithy but very exact teachings that Kyoba Rinpoche gave about the four immeasurables and how that those four immeasurables directly relate to what's known as the four Buddha activities. And the concept of four Buddha activities is big, especially in secret mantra. Some of you may, if you run around in Vajrayana circles, I think most of you are not running around so much in those circles. And those circles sometimes can be like a circus. Where the activities overwhelm the essence, If you now you can run around those circles without leaving your home at all. You just go on Facebook and you can see, how many this deity empowerment, that deity empowerment, this deity transmission, that deity transmission, all these seeming promises, like if you chant this mantra, if you visualize that deity, this wealth will come and, overcoming obstacles, Of course, Buddha gave, according to, if you accept what Vajrayana says, yes, of course, Buddha did at some point, teach. But when we lose at the basic understanding, when it becomes disproportionate, then really we need to ask ourselves, are we here to beautify samsara, sanitize samsara, or are we here to get out of samsara? Even illness, of course, none of us want to be ill. I'm the first one to raise my hand. No, I don't want to be ill. But if we think the Buddha Dharma is to help us stop illness, then we've totally misunderstood what Buddha Dharma is for. And then if we think, oh, Buddha Dharma is to help me not have a single illness in my life, and then up to Buddha Dharma is going to help me not to die, then we don't understand, what Buddha Dharma is. So this is really important. So here, in this four immeasurable minds, Gyalpa Rinpoche shows, how if we really know how to practice the four immeasurable minds, then the Buddha activities can be very naturally accomplished without needing to kind of run here, run there. Oh, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. So he says, right, with the cultivating Maitri. When you cultivate Maitri, you cultivate loving kindness, and that accomplishes the attracting. You cultivate karuna, right? You cultivate karuna, and with compassion. Let's see if we can get this right. Equanimity. We'll begin with what I clearly easier to remember. You cultivate equanimity that will pacify suffering. You cultivate joy that will lead to increasing activities. Right? Right? You cultivate compassion. That is the one that I don't remember. Do you remember? Compassion and loving kindness is related to the other two. So you have increasing and pacifying. And then there is the control.
Magnetizing and subjugating.
Sorry?
Magnetizing is Maitri.
To magnetize, yes, is to attract, right?
And subjugating is with compassion.
Yeah. So no. Magnetizing is subjugating. Compassion is the destroying.
Destroyer.
Yes, the destroying. So compassion is the destroying. So you destroy, the wrathful with compassion. And you attract with loving kindness. So again, you attract, you control, so to say. You magnetize with loving kindness. You destroy, quote unquote, destroy. You crush with compassion. You increase with joy. You pacify with equanimity. So the four immeasurables, then we also talked about the four divine dwellings. And the four Brahma Vihara, when does it transition from the divine dwellings, which is within Samsara, higher states, so relatively less dukkha, but nonetheless still in samsara. If it is not, if cultivating these four is not embraced by bodhicitta. When it's embraced by bodhicitta, it becomes the four immeasurable minds. Then the four immeasurables give rise to the four Buddha activities. Then finally, Gilbert Rinpoche said, Buddhahood is the embodiment of the four immeasurable minds. And there are traditions in Buddhist, various Buddhist traditions, in Tibet, that debated, whether at the state of Buddhahood, are there positive qualities to say, or is there no, you cannot say. And so in fact, it's a whole book recently published. It says, is reality beyond good and evil? A big debate topic, This is just not just, but a scholar kind of summarizes the key positions. And in there, chapter 3 is called, chapter 1 is 4 approaches to ultimate virtue. This notion of in the ultimate state is virtuous. 4 approaches. Beginning with the next chapter, virtual ambivalence. So like not very clear in the Indian text one way or the other. And then this arrives in Tibet, then Tibetans try to kind of make more clear, for themselves. They want to understand. So then the first position, the very beginning of this, actually this author, we went to UVA, University of Virginia, together. He's very good in Tibetan, amazing. He arrived at UVA, he was already teaching Tibetan to others, Russian guy. And chapter 3, is called The Ultimate is a Virtue. And this is Dorje Sherup's on Jigten Gompo's teachings. So Jigten Sumgön, one of Jigten Sumgön's early disciples called Dorje Sherup, he wrote a commentary on the Gongchik. And so this book begins by Dorje Sherup's position. And then in the wake of Dorje Sherup kind of boldly saying that the ultimate is virtuous, not beyond good and evil. There is ultimate virtue. Staking unambiguously this position. Then from there, mostly within the Sakya family. So next one. The ultimate is not a virtue. Sakya Pandita's objections. Then next is Shakya Choden, who is also a Sakyapa. But he says, no, it's virtuous. And then someone comes to take him to task within his own lineage, Gorampa. So 8 chapters, if you're looking for something to read over the holidays so you have an excuse to escape family, this would be a virtuous reading. Not easy, okay? Tibetan Buddhist inquiry into the ultimate virtue. Anyway, this is a big topic, So the Drugungpas say, generally. There is ultimate virtue. So anyway, now let's go back to what we started reading, an essentialized collection on treasuring the Guru's instructions. We covered that section where Kyoba Rinpoche says there are three qualities that are necessary in terms of a guru that we rely on. First, they have the ability to guide others because they have wisdom, they have insight, and they have understanding. Not just theoretical understanding, they have the understanding that arises from themselves having seen how things are. Secondly, they have the ability to take on the burden of the suffering of sentient beings. In other words, they are patient, they can empathize with students. So sometimes, very true, sometimes some teachers, they understand, they have insight, but then still need to develop kind of strength to watch, students getting lost again and again and again, come to you, ask for advice, you tell them, they walk away, do the opposite, and you don't give up, Very tough. But if the teacher don't have this kind of toughness, and people come, people go, people come, people go, and they may be kind of seemingly so focused on Dharma practice, then poof, disappeared because they are keeping track, out of the 7 times they saw you, you only smile at them 3 times, but they saw you smiling at someone else 6 times. And that is sometimes enough for them to say, Tata, I don't like you anymore. And you cannot give up, You keep going. Do you have that kind, of strength? And recently someone shared with me how meaningful, how rewarding it is to successfully share a Dharma point with others and seeing that others get it, appreciate it, and then kind of said to me, oh, now I understand, why you do what you do. I said, yeah, that's one side of, the story, I said, you do this long enough, you see, there are the other sides, The other sides is like mysteriously people seem to want to hear what you say. Mysteriously also people, kind of disappear, And so if you don't have this second quality, the ability to take on the burden of the suffering of all sentient beings through compassion, then it's going to be hard. Then the third point, not so attached to matters of this life, mundane things. So these are the 3 qualities. Then it says, alternately, the single ability to point out co-emergence, the very nature of mind, can also be kind of like a substitute for those 3. And so Kyoba seems to say, like, yes, there's also a scenario where maybe this guru don't have these three qualities, or you can't see these three qualities, but if this person somehow, not the somehow part means that this person have seen this co-emergent nature of mind, has developed the capacity to show it to you, and you have karmic connection with this person, then that person can also be the guru. So the quote here, through their kindness of such a person, they bring about the dawning of great bliss in a single instant. I bow at the lotus feet of this precious master, who is the Vajra holder, who is Vajradhara. The guru introducing you to the nature of mind is a precious master who resembles the famed wish-fulfilling jewel. There are uncountable ways in which you should attend to such a guru. Nevertheless, the ultimate way to do so is through intense devotion and longing, and never letting your mind be separated from the sublime guru at any time or in any situation. With this mindset, you venerate the guru at all times and all occasions. You may be in a faraway land when you hear the guru's name. Yet if you possess intense devotion and longing, the emanation bodies of the victors will come to bless you and allow for the immeasurable doors of samadhi. And so the various ways to stabilize the mind, the various way to anchor the mind, or other positive qualities to arise in your mind stream. This was the case with Sadaparudita, the ever-weeping bodhisattva, who heard the name of the bodhisattva Dharmogata. So this story of Sadaparudita and Dharmogata, I think if you Google, you'll find the kind of the original story involving these two. It's a story of the disciple, which is Sadaparudita, and the teacher Dharmogata. Kyopa in many places would talk about the relationship between these two as a way of teaching us how we should relate to a guru when we have found a qualified guru. That's key, yeah? A qualified guru. Here, let's be explicit, I see my role as the teaching assistant. So don't immediately project, either projecting, thinking, I'm assuming this role of the guru, or you have found in me the guru. Best we just keep it at, I'm the teaching assistant. The guru, right now, Buddha Shakyamuni. So this was the case when Sadaparudita, the ever-weeping bodhisattva, heard the name of the bodhisattva Dharmogata and felt great longing. And yet devotion from a distance by itself is not enough. Since the cause of Buddha's Sambhogakaya is the imprint accumulated merit, the imprint of accumulated merit, the perfect benefiting of self and others. So here it's saying, right, how Buddha's Sambhogakaya, here just as an example of how Buddhas manifest to benefit others, it is due to the imprint, it is due to having accumulated merit. And this merit is what arises as the perfect benefiting of self and others. And how does this come about? Then it says, you have to venerate the sublime guru in the following way. After the Guru generates bodhicitta, the mind bent on supreme awakening, the arising of which is like the earth, meaning it now becomes the basis for all the things that grow from this earth. You offer your body, speech, and mind, any materials or possessions in the vicinity, along with all roots of virtue in the three times. These roots of virtue, devoid of desire, are like ripe seeds that turn into the Sambhogakaya of Buddhists. Sambhogakayas are the dimensions of being of Buddhists that benefit others. This was the case when Sadaparudita, the ever-weeping bodhisattva, saw that devotion for bodhisattva Dharmodgata from a distance by itself was not enough. Therefore, he offered 500 chariots and 500 women adorned with jewelry. He even offered the flesh, blood, and bones of his own body and all his possessions without a care. In doing so, he reached the direct realization of the seventh bhumi, according to the account found in the sutras. So again, I think if you Google this, some sutras where this story is told is probably already translated, especially by this sutra translation project called 84,000. So here, making offerings to the Guru is the skillful method of cutting our attachment. Elsewhere, Kyoba Rinpoche, right now I'm looking at this one text. It's called the Victory Banner of Intelligence. Like true intelligence, not the philosophical intelligence, but true intelligence with regards to the path. Where Kyoba Rinpoche, this is a composition of his. He did not compose a lot, but there is a number of texts in his 12 volumes of collected teachings whereby he composed. So this one, he composed. So there he lays out the text by talking about the three things, the practice of the three discarding. And basically to discard delusion, attachment, and aversion. And then the three things that needs to be cultivated. And then the three purities to be experienced. And so anyway, in this one section where he talks about the need for a qualified guru and how one should attend to this guru. And so after a long section, actually, well, long enough, on how you have to, when you have found such a guru, I can tell you, a little bit uncomfortable for me to read, because it says, even if you see this guru, doing something wrong, understand that that's not what's going on. So this kind of teaching, I admit, in this day and time especially, we have to hear this, with the right frame of mind, with right understanding. And so there's things like that, I cannot explain this away and say, oh, no, this is just, but it just shows, like in Kyopa's time, there is, when he says this, his disciples know, like actually, no, Buddhas won't do things like this. So it's kind of like a rhetorical, and say, even if, and then of course all his disciples know, no, they won't do this. But even if, But then these days, sometimes this has become an excuse for uh, people acting badly in bad faith. But anyway, after saying all of this, and so this here, what we're reading here, like making offerings of 500 chariots, 500 women adorned with jewelry. He offered flesh, blood, and bones of his own body. And then, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm like, why does the guru need these things? I mean, 500 chariots is basically, 500 Rolls Royces. Osho, Rajneesh famously owned 500, Rolls Royces. And those of you who remember this name, in his commune up in Oregon. Wild, Wild Country is the documentary on Netflix on this spiritual community led by Osho. He had 500 chariots. I'm sure his disciples offered him the 500 chariots and the 500 women adorned with jewelry. But in Kyoba Rinpoche's that text, banner of intelligence. So after he talked about how you should offer, then he talked about the guru side. First, he talked about the disciple side, what they should be ready to do. Then he talked about the guru side. And then he said, and then the gurus, and the ones serving as gurus. So that's very good. That part I like. And he said, a guru who has any of the needs of any of these things that are being offered to them is not suitable to be a guru. He says, they're not suitable to be a guru. So let me see if I can very quickly pull that up. It's very nice, some of the wordings there. Let me see, if I can very quickly pull that up. That section, I think he says here, although there are students who try to buy the autonomy of the guru with material goods and provisions, buy the autonomy of the guru, control the guru, with material goods and provisions, hoping that some dharma or something purely excellent will emerge for themselves that is superior to anyone else's, superior to what the other students wanting to be the guru's pet by, giving the guru lots of stuff. Yet it is difficult for this to happen. And this is referring to, can you really receive the guru's blessings this way? Since even starving persons whose merits are exhausted and are on the verge of death should fear the death incurred by even a small handout, so Kyoba says, since even starving persons whose merits are exhausted and are on the verge of death might fear the death incurred by even a small handout from someone else, a true guru is like a beggar who knows they can always find enough food to fill their belly somewhere. Such a guru is terrified by an excess of goods and supplies and sees worldly materialism as an enemy. A being who is honored as the crest jewel of the world, even by the gods, and who lacks for nothing, cannot be pleased with material things. Should they accept such offerings, they would be burdened by a great debt of gratitude and would no longer be free to act as they see fit. Once a guru is corrupted by the stuff, the attention that students give to them, then they cannot, they are no longer free to act as they see fit, fit for the benefit of the students. It is unlikely that such a guru desires such goods. As for being pleased by attendance and service, that too is unlikely. If they dwell in solitude, all the Viras and Dakinis would serve them. If they move among a gathering, Brahma, Indra, and the great kings attend to them and serve them. And when the terrors of sickness, suffering, and death arise, they are served and attended by the unwavering co-emergent great bliss. So I have never understood why a person who is inseparable from this co-emergence would have any great need for servants. Yeah, this I like. Kia, great beings, consider this well. So I'm coming back to. You may have just the PDF version. Some of you have this booklet. Kia, great beings. Kia is like, pay attention. Great beings, consider this well. It is the Guru who enables you to be liberated from the infinite depths of suffering in beginningless samsara. Without offering fierce longing devotion, unceasingly and unrelentingly, who will be your protector and refuge? From time without beginning until the present, we have not made offerings to the Guru of our flesh, blood, and bones. And there are these cherished bodies now. And where are these cherished bodies now? Right now, I will offer without hesitation this rotten body of mine to the protector of the three worlds, my authentic and sublime Guru. Here, protector of the three worlds, yeah, Jigten Sumgun. But here, who we now call Jigten Sumgun is writing about offering his rotten body to Jigten Sumgun. And who is this Jigten Sumgun? His teacher, Mahamudra. My authentic and sublime Guru, his exalted Buddha form shines with a golden hue. It is exquisitely adorned and blazes with the glory of all the major and minor marks. Unchanging, it permanently abides throughout all realms without exception. For maturing sentient beings without exception, if we don't exchange our rotten bodies for the exalted form of the sage, what is the use of these rotten bodies? In other words, practice idam and actualize guru. So, if we don't exchange our rotten bodies for the exalted form of the sage, meaning Buddha Shakyamuni, why remain perpetually connected with them, with these rotten bodies? Offer all material wealth and resources, relatives, and retinue to the Guru, who is the nature of the three kayas, for the sake of an ocean of happiness and qualities of myself and others without exception. My only child, if you do not make great offerings of your material wealth and resources, don't you think that the poisons of yourself and others will only increase? By offering everything worthy of being offered, such as your body, life force, and material possessions, to the Guru who is beyond comparison, you accomplish the exalted body, speech, and minds of the Buddhas as an inexhaustible wheel. So this are instructions, for the students. But then, like I said, he also have instructions for the teachers. And in those instructions, he's also telling students what to look for. Yeah, so I've met, such teachers where, so one of our teachers in the Drivung Kagyu, famously, Drawang Rinpoche, passed away 20 years ago. He has this piled up hair. Uh, when first time I met him, 40 years ago then, well, he had passed away 20 years ago, maybe 30 odd years ago. It was in India that I did. And went to his house, a small house with a front part. Then there's the second part, small room in front just for people to wait until you go into where he sleeps, where he practices, just another small room. And then there's a small kitchen in the back. And you go into his space and there's practically nothing there, In the sitting room, there's just some plastic chairs for guests to sit on. Then you go into his actual room. There's really no furniture. And so it looks like really bare, And the attendants, the people who brought us to go see Rinpoche, could tell that we were feeling a little like, what is going on, So when we left the Lama who brought us there, the monk who brought us there, and he was like, yeah, actually, there was a time, there were more things in this house, but now we don't put anything in his house anymore, because every time His Holiness put something in there for him, he gives it away to whoever comes next. So I said, Holiness cannot afford to keep buying things and Drawang Rinpoche keep giving them away. Yeah, so Drawang Rinpoche would just, the next person who comes in, whatever the previous person gave him, he said, okay, here, you take. So yes, met teachers like that, And so they take from you when you give them, because that's their job, They'll help you purify your wealth, so to say. But then if they start hoarding, then they will be burdened by your offerings, your wealth. Then they cannot function as the guru that they are supposed to function as. So give away, give away, give away. Another great Lama I've never met is Kunu Lama Rinpoche, whom His Holiness the Dalai Lama considers to be his most important teacher on the topic of bodhicitta. Kunu Lama Rinpoche was from this area in India called Kinor, which historically has become Buddhist, following the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Especially Drukpa Kagyu is active in this area in Kinor. Geluk, I think also. Anyway, Kunu Lama Rinpoche, in his youth, traveled to Tibet. This was when Tibet was still its own country. And then he trained in Tibet, and he taught Sanskrit also in Tibet because he's basically Indian. Even his face is Indian. But they're from this mountain area, mountain tribe. And so he went to Tibet. He taught, but then he also learned. Then later, when Tibet fell, then he left Tibet and went back to India. And so in his biography, there's a study, a book that came out maybe a year or two ago. And Khenchen Gonjo Gyaltsen was one of Kunu Lama Rinpoche's students. And so also a few of our other Drigong Lamas. Gyabo Rinpoche was a disciple. Ondu Rinpoche. Yeah, so several of our Rinpoches. And because Kunu Lama also lived in the Tsopema area. And because the first Drigong monastery in exile, other than Ladakh, the first Drigong Kagya monastery established in exile was Ondu Rinpoche's monastery in Tsopema, in this area called Tsopema. Tibetans call Tsopema, Indians call Rewalsa, on the foothills of the Himalaya. And so Kunu Lama Rinpoche lived there. And so because of that, our Drigong Lamas all received teachings from Kunu Lama Rinpoche. There also, famously, Kunu Lama Rinpoche was another person like that. People would give him offerings. The next group of people who come in, he will take all the money and he'll give them away, including Westerners who come see him. He takes whatever money he says. He says, "Okay, this is for you. This is for you. This is." He's not just giving only to monks and nuns. He's just quickly whatever he can get rid of, he gets rid of. And when he passed away, he had nothing. He kept throughout his life, just kept giving away. So such individuals are really, reliable gurus. So we cannot just read, one side of this about giving the students and giving, and not also understand that on the other side, the one receiving has to also give, and maybe add more and give more. So today we will stop here. Go to dedication, which is on page 78. By the virtues collected in the three times by me in the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtues, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. Changchu Semcho Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Na Ge Gyu Chi Ge Ba Nyam Pa Be Ba Ya Gong Ne Gong Du Bel Wa Sho. Okay, see you all mañana. Ta-ta.